MCU completed Phase 3 with the triumphant 1-2 punch of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. And then there was also the Spider-Man denouement of Spider-Man Far From Home. Now Marvel Studios is forced to look at a future without many characters that helped build the epic MCU legacy. Is MCU Phase 4 the worst yet for Marvel Studios? And why does Marvel seem more divisive than ever? Keep watching as we dig into these and other MCU questions. First off, let's recap Phases 1 to 3. The phase construct at Marvel began back in 2008 with Iron Man. Viewers were left salivating for more, with the studio introduced the first post-credits scenes. Back then, it was Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury. The team-up audiences had been dreaming about happened in 2012 with the Avengers. In Phase 2, MCU introduced the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, Wanda Maximoff, the Wasp, and the Winter Soldier. This phase concluded with Avengers Age of Ultron. Phase 3 brought in the heavy hitters: Black Panther, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, and Doctor Strange. And then there was the epic conclusion with Avengers Endgame. This whole phase was a narrative build-up that teased audiences to the final confrontation with Thanos, and this build-up paid off. Phase 3 ended on a high, and expectations were high for the next phase. But what has been happening so far? Stay with us as we get in under the hood of the MCU Phase 4. Now, what is the Phase 4 direction? Right now, content is abundant, but the direction seems sorely lacking. Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and Natasha Romanoff are off the board. Many characters that helped to forge the original Teal are scattered in the wind through spin-offs or solo projects. Some have even been turned into villains. Phase 4 had to start the next big MCU narrative. This narrative would have to flow between the films and TV shows and build up to something similar to the standard of Avengers Endgame. That's what audiences expected. But is MCU delivering? Look, following in the footsteps of the second highest grossing box office hit is a big ask. But fresh off the gargantuan success of MCU Phases 1 through 3, one would have expected Marvel to have a clear and concise idea of where MCU is going. That's not happening though. Characters and stories seem to be introduced without any real connective tissue to the larger MCU. The next great threat, Kang, first seen in the finale of Loki Season 1, has had no real impact yet and has left fans wondering if this new phase is worth the investment. Fans have also taken to social media to discuss the perceived drop in quality. So, why is Marvel Phase 4 the MCU's most divisive yet? MCU has made it to its first rotten movie on Rotten Tomatoes. It got 47% for Eternals, directed by Chloe Zhao. This movie was a major miss. It introduced new characters and fresh layers to the MCU. But that's not all. 3 of the MCU's lowest rated movies ever are from Phase 4, and also 3 of MCU's worst cinema score productions. This includes Eternals, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and the controversial Thor: Love and Thunder. For the impact of Disney Plus Marvel shows, keep watching. Then, the introduction of Disney Plus Marvel shows. The introduction of Disney Plus Marvel shows was a rocky road for Marvel Studios. Some struggled with low budgets, and the storylines were often meandering. That said, a few others did push the MCU forward, but this created an uneven start for the interconnection between series and movies. This lack of focus, combined with tighter budgets and unconnected meandering stories, was amplified by the loss of popular characters. Marvel fans are divided like never before because of Phase 4. Okay, but why did Avengers Endgame make Phase 4 harder? The rousing, rewarding, epic finale of both Infinity War and Endgame left fans with a fantastic end to a brilliant decade's worth of storytelling. Following up on that was always going to be a challenge. The decision to take a few high-profile characters out of the equation didn't make the next phase of the journey easier. Tony Stark, Iron Man, Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Black Widow Natasha Romanoff are out of the picture. It was specifically Iron Man and Captain America that held MCU Phase 1 to 3 together. Their absence in MCU Phase 4 is deeply felt, and there is no news yet about who will take over their roles. No clear leaders are emerging in the greater story, and we're 6 movies and 7 TV shows into Phase 4. There are problems at MCU MCU, that's clear. To understand what they are, keep watching. So is it a question of too much content in Phase 4? As Marvel entered the reality of streaming, things were bound to get diluted. Previously, it was 2 or maybe 3 movies per year. Streaming has upped that to 3 or 4, with Disney Plus shows seeing the light every other month. This is truly an onslaught of content in Phase 4. There is no room to digest any of it. This trend is set to continue well into 2023. 4 movies are scheduled for release, and there are TV shows which seem endless. Everything collides in an assortment of content, some of which is connected, but the majority is not. This is not complaining about too much of a good thing. It's merely noticing that this good thing seems to be becoming monotonous, meandering, aimless, and without stakes or hype. It's highly possible audiences will lose their appetites altogether. But what exactly is Marvel Phase 4 building towards? This is completely unclear. What MCU achieved with the Avengers back in 2012 happened through serious hype building. Things intensified when the long-awaited villain finally emerged. The post-credits scenes hinted at Thanos. Throughout Phases 1 to 3, he experienced a loud and quiet buildup of everything around him. The narrative created superbly connected characters and stories, which built anticipation for the showdown that was many films away at that stage. Currently, excluding the tepid tease of Kang at the end of Loki Season 1, fans have no idea where anything is going in the story. There's no indication of the real threat. Nobody knows if the Avengers still exists. It is anybody's guess who is on the team or leading it. The multiverse introduction is seriously cool, but up to now, it's done nothing but bring back characters from pre-MCU films, and of course, create variations on others. But why does everything feel like it's becoming loose at the seams? Stay with us for answers. Also, some of the Phase 4 movies are just not up to par. Over the past 10 years, Marvel has become the biggest film franchise, but there have been duds too. Thor: The Dark World, Iron Man 2, Captain Marvel, and many others have a steady stream of detractors. The wide criticism of Eternals showed that this lackluster effort meandered way off the Marvel reservation. But is Phase 4 really MCU's worst ever? Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. Consistency, story, character, and execution is lacking around every corner. Sure, Phases 1 through 3 weren't perfect, but one sensed they belonged to each other, and they built towards a final resolution from one phase to the next. This made it possible to whet fans' appetites for what lurked around the next twist in the road. The main villain or threat was always clear in Phases 1 through 3. So were the Avengers. We know who they were. In Phase 4, they're leaderless, and there is no indication of who even makes up the group. Phase 4 seems doomed, but is there enough time and foresight to save it? Keep watching to the end. We'll give you the lowdown. Okay, so was trusting the MCU directors so much a mistake? Maybe not entirely. Phase 4 has certainly seen greater freedom granted to the directors, and the different directorial styles have led to divisive responses. The answer would be a better balance between directorial freedom and universe cohesion. Each of the 6 theatrical releases in Phase 4 has had a different director. The longer-form storytelling has suffered because of this. In Phase 4 theatrical releases, audience responses have been far less consistent than in Phase 1 through 3. Kate Shorthand began Marvel's journey into a post-Avengers Endgame era. Black Widow received a mostly positive reception. Since then, Marvel has released Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Spider-Man: No Way Home, Eternals, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and then, recently, Thor: Love and Thunder. Only Shang-Chi and Spider-Man have had a positive reception. The rest of the films, ironically focused more on distinctive directorial styles, did not. Clearly, and upon closer scrutiny, greater directorial freedom is increasing the diversity of the projects. Still, the overall cohesion and the quality of the MCU are up for debate for the first time. Finally, there has been the conveyor belt criticism. The most prominent criticism at Marvel Studios Phase 1 to 3 was that this was a conveyor belt studio. It was simply putting out the same type of film with nothing more than different characters and a light reskin. The criticism also said that there was hardly a distinction between a film and its predecessor, with no differentiation in style or direction. Fans know this criticism isn't accurate. Any cinema-goer would be hard-pressed to find a multiplicity of similarities between Thor: Ragnarok and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Is MCU Phase 4 in trouble? Possibly. Is it too late to fix the problems? Probably not, but it will take focus and a profound rethink.